Good evening. A run around the block is all well.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Charlie Sheen. No. Sorry. A run around the block is all well and good, but a marathon is a little more taxing. Try 8 marathons in 8 weeks and wait for it. Each race happens in a different country. Ooh. Married couple Sue and Andrew O'Brien have done exactly that, and this aptly named Couple on the Run join us this morning. 8 marathons, 8 weeks, 8 countries, but how did you actually start running together? How did you get that idea?
Well, I've always been involved in fitness. I've always been one of those people that does exercise from an early age. My family were very sporting. I could always run short distances, but I could never run a marathon. And that's what I'd always said, that I'm very fit, but can't run a marathon.
And I was more likely to run off the rails than run around the block.
Yes.
So I gave up cigarettes and the beer and pizza diet and started to run to get fit.
And you had some chronic fatigue syndrome as well.
Just as I started to get fit, met Sue, and then chronic fatigue syndrome.
I didn't cause it.
And so, has that helped your relationship, the running together? That's what you've gained out of it?
Yeah, well, we actually first started running together in Chicago. Andrew was going to run the Chicago Marathon, and it was his way of sort of saying that he was over chronic fatigue, was to run a marathon.
Oh, God, yes.
Yeah, definitely a good way of proving it. And I was going to go along for as long as I could, and I sort of thought, well, look, I can't run long distances, I'll just stop if I need to, and I'll meet you back at the hotel. And sure enough, we got to that point that I was going to stop. And it was sort of a turning point, I think, in our relationship as well, that he said, no, I'll wait for you.
Oh,
and I'll walk with you.
Yeah.
We'll stay together. And we went drink station by drink station, and eventually we got to the finish, and it was just so wonderful that someone had taken the time.
Uncontrollable. We got the line. We sort of reached out, grasped our hands, and we'd made it. And it's sort of, that's been our thing ever since. We always see ourselves at the end holding hands the last 10 metres, and then a quick kiss after we've crossed the line.
How long was the Chicago one then?
42 kilometres.
42 Ks. Oh. That was the start of it. And what are you used to running?
Well, I was usually running about 10K, but we trained up, like we were sort of like a little bit, you know, we were prepared for it. But that was sort of the start of our running marathons together, and we realised that, hey, we can go so much further together than going on our own and giving up. Or
so you weren't married at that stage?
Or we were just...
At Chicago, we've been married for about a year.
Yeah.
So this has set you lots of challenges. Has it ever put a strain on your relationship?
The strain was when I was really sick with chronic fatigue, and I mean, I couldn't walk 100 metres. It was that tough.
How did you overcome that, Andrew?
Well, it was do a little bit more, and it's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Yep. And
so over 2 years it took. I was lucky I got my health back, and then we found that the time that we spend running together is, there's no phones, there's no television, there's no Facebook, there's none of that.
Yeah.
And by accident we just start talking about the things which matter, and I think...
So you're talking while you're running?
Yeah.
Yes.
Most of our training is at that level where you can still talk.
Yeah.
Yumi would say you are not working hard enough.
No, long, slow distance, keeping the talking going is very important.
What were some of the highlights of that extraordinary feat? I mean, the first one I saw was the South African Marathon, which was an ultra marathon, which was 87 kilometres.
In the heat.
And people were held up as they were running, is that right?
For their shoes at gunpoint, to have their shoes stolen during the marathon, which was amazing.
Wow. What were some of the other highlights? That wasn't a highlight.
Not having our shoes stolen was a
There were
highlight.
obviously some highlights. What were they?
That was special. I mean, one of my things is when it comes to running, the thing that I'm only really good at is carbo loading. And so that's usually done the night before. And so when we were in Missoula, I'd eaten a bit too much the night before, and I was quite sick, and so I had to keep making all these stops. But we were told, there's what does a bear do in the woods? Well, don't find out. Stick to that. So
wait for the stay on the course.
I had to stop a bit more often than usual that day. So, but it was beautiful scenery, and we were together.
So I'm just looking at all these medals. It's so impressive. I've only ever won one medal, and it was the one that everyone in the netball team got, you know, just for turning up. Have you got a favourite in here? Like, if you can just pick one out and tell us a story about what it means. There's a Mickey Mouse one I can see. Well, what happened there?
There's a thing with Mickey Mouse, and I think we've got Donald Duck there.
Yeah. So we've got...
Did you beat Mickey Mouse in a marathon?
They have you run a half marathon on Saturday, and then you run the marathon on the Sunday, the next day, and it's called the Goofy, and we ran the half with our daughter at the end of her VCE, and that was a really special moment. So the three of us running whilst the son was taking the camera and that sort of thing.
And is it in Disneyland?
Yeah,
It goes in and out
Disney
of
World.
all of Disney World.
So you go through the theme parks.
Oh, I'd love
and,
that.
Yeah, and you have your photo
But I'd
taken
like-
with all the characters.
I'd
as
like to
you
do
come
it in
up
a
to one.
golf cart.
We'll stop at the Dagwood Dog Stand.
Now, can we just talk about partner running? Because I do a bit of running and swimming myself, and I love the idea of having a buddy to do it with. So what are some tips for making that work?
I think that the first one is to choose an activity which you both want to do.
Yep.
And so for us it's running, but it could be walking or cycling or doing anything. So it's something that you really want to do, not you think it's a good idea, it's something you want to do. So that's the first thing.
Yeah, and the second thing is to make shared success non-negotiable. So if you start together, you're going to finish together, and then you open up to the possibilities, well, how are we going to make this happen? If we're going to finish together, what steps do we need to take to make sure that we finish together? And that's important.
So next one would be very clear about what you're trying to achieve. And so these are principles you can apply beyond exercise. So a lot of couples will say, we want to buy a house, and then when it gets to the crunch, they find out they've got very different views of what a house is. So talk about what actually you really mean by success, so you know you're on the same page.
Yeah, and I think that also it's really important to set ground rules and make sure that you stick to them. So if someone wants to stop and someone wants to walk, it's okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
We do stop, we take it easy, we don't leave anybody behind.
You don't say, come on, you can do it,
Yeah,
or
there's
whatever.
no
You
point
just-
flogging someone who's really
Yeah.
exhausted and can't keep going.
Well, you've got this wonderful book here, Couple on the Run. That's out at the moment?
Yes, it's just in stores and available online. You can buy the ebook as well.
And what are you
online.
going to do next now that you've done 888?
Well, we're actually off to Paris and London marathons next month, and it's for my significant birthday that's coming up.
30.
Yes, Denise, definitely. 30, definitely.
As you say, when Sue turned 30, we ran Paris, and when I turned 30, we ran Canberra. And most guys understand the difference. And so now, 10 years later, it's 10 years later, and we're
Thank you,
going back
darling,
to
but it's actually 50, so I am turning 50.
Wow.
50?
Paris,
You
yeah.
look fabulous.
Oh, thank
Look
you.
amazing.
Wonderful.
Please put your hands together for the very inspirational and very fit Sue and Andrew O'Brien. Good news, folks. Everyone in today's audience gets to take home a copy of their fabulous book. There it is. Coming up, another road trip through Kakadu with Alicia McCormack, and we'll be right back after this from Nikki.